All right, let's get to the big story. 777. There's folks that are saying, you know what, 5 years is not enough. So let's have 7 years for members of parliament. Let's have 7 years for local council leaders, but let's also have 7 years for the president. Now, the twist, of course, is that for the president, that has to happen through a referendum. For MPs and the local government leaders, that happened in parliament during that amendment. Of course, there are court cases. We are waiting to see what comes out of that. But for the president, it can only happen through a referendum. And the idea and the whole, preparation did begin in Chivoga 2 weeks ago. So this morning, we want to talk about the referendum, look at its plausibility, things like electoral reforms. Because look, the referendum is like any other election. And there have been concerns about our elections. There have been, proposals and recommendations by the Supreme Court. To date, there is still not much that has been done in that area. So do we expect that this referendum will really, at the end of the day, deliver a result of the people? But also more critically, the 7-year term. I know that this discussion was on for some time, but it's important to revisit it even as we talk about the referendum. 7 years for a leader. Do you need 7 years for you to make an impact, for you to do what you really need to do? Let me get to my guests. I have with me the Honorable Paul Amoro. He's the Member of Parliament for Dokolo North. Good morning, Honorable.
Good morning, Joel.
Good, thank you. You're well?
It has been a while. Good to meet you again.
We are glad that you came through this morning, well armed with the Constitution and everything else that is on that tab. I'm sure for you use it well. We hear that your colleagues, some of them, normally just play solitaire on the iPad.
No, that's a hearsay.
But my colleagues in the media took pictures of those who were,
I think in the past, not now.
Anyway, we also have with us Robert Mugabe. Robert is the NEC member of the PPP. That's the People's Progressive Party. Good morning, Robert.
Good morning, Joel. Good morning, viewers.
There's quite a bit of similarities between these two gentlemen. Of course, when you see their heads, that one I'll not, it needs no mention, but also their hobbies.
Yes.
But they differ on a couple of things, as you will establish. Let's dig in and see how it goes. Robert, I know that you have several concerns about the referendum, the planned referendum. Talk to us about what those are.
Well, Joel, let's begin from the basics. There is a narrative that has been created in this country, and the narrative speaks to a reality that does not exist, that you conduct elections in this country, and elections will deliver what the electorate want. And for me, observing the politics of Uganda for some time now, I'm saying that's a false narrative. That is something that we need to change. Elections, from the time that the NRM regime came to power, has not delivered what the people of Uganda want. And so if you want to come to the referendum is not any different. It is going to be the same, conducted by the same people, the same electoral management system. President Museveni is still there, so it's not going to be any different. I would have wanted a situation where we look at this differently, and the difference that I want to see is, can we negotiate, can we talk? Elections cannot deliver this country. Every dictator, Joel, will want to conduct elections for basically two reasons. They want to get legitimacy, but also secondly, they want to use elections to rent support because they know that without elections, those are not able. They are not able to achieve those. And so, for me, I'm saying elections, the referendum is not something that we want to go into as a country at this particular point in time.
Honorable Moro, do you hear his concerns? Because the referendum is pretty much an election like all the others. There were recommendations made by the Supreme Court, not for the first time, by the way. In 2001, when Besigye went to court, there were recommendations. In 2006, there were recommendations. 2011, no one went to court. 2016, Amama Mbabazi went to court. There were recommendations. And many times the court keeps, repeating itself about these recommendations. Nothing is done. We keep moving on swiftly as if everything is normal. And here we are planning to conduct a referendum under the same setting. Isn't that problematic?
Well, not at all. We have definitely seen some reforms
Which ones?
And,
Like changing of the name of the EC? You know that was changed from Electoral Commission to Independent Electoral Commission.
No, there's a lot of reforms if you want to talk about. Our constitution is one of the most progressive and very accommodative to all groups, and as it has given space for us to participate confidently in politics and in governance of this country. But listening to my brother Robert, you know, it's very interesting to the political players in this country today. People keep shifting goalposts. Just a few months ago, everybody, and I think even Robert here, they're saying, no, members of parliament, please let us have a referendum. These are very important issues that we cannot just leave in the hands of about 400 and so members of parliament. So they wanted the voice of the people. And even when the constitution mandates members of parliament to legislate, of course not in all aspects, but members of parliament, their primary responsibility is to legislate. But other people are saying, no, when it comes to very sensitive matters, take it to the people. Go for a referendum, like we did when we were crossing from the movement system to multi-party politics. And so this is the time, and I saw recommendations from all groups, a number of opposition politicians, some religious leaders, and the principle they were trying to advance, even when some of them sought to take away the mandate of members of parliament. They were saying, let's have a referendum. So now we have an opportunity to interface with Ugandans right in the villages and ask them to decide what path do we take.
But Honorable, the question really is, away from those that you're saying might be shifting goalposts, the question to people like myself and others is, under what setting? You are having a ground that is not leveled. The Supreme Court has said that severally. Recommendations have not been acted on. And you're going in that election, and at the end of the day, and by the way, it's possible that you get a result that favors you. But you see, you want to win fairly, you want to win in such a way that there is no dispute to your win. But now you see, when you win, there will be a dispute because of the setting. You know, back then, Amin used to tell his sportsmen, especially the boxers, that you know what, when you go into the ring, knock this guy out. That way, there's no dispute. You know? So you want to have a situation such as that. But now you see, when you get into such an election, the money involved, the power of the incumbency, the whole structure, EC, and so on, it's difficult for you to get a win that's credible.
First of all, I think this election, you're not going to personalize it. The referendum, of course, is a general election, and it is based on issues, not even individuals.
Are you kidding
me? Not even parties, because the issue, just like when we were doing referendum on multi-party system of governance, I remember the president actually was opposed to it, but he lost.
But he went around the country campaigning for it.
No,
he was opposed because of the dynamics and so on, but eventually he gave in to the powers that be.
Even up to today, and many people believe that probably we hurried, but that's what everybody was talking about. Opposition was pushing, let's open up. And just 6 months later, everybody is against it. I think we were not ready. I think during the movement system, it was a lot better, that sort of thing. So this is what the president had foreseen and guided the country. But people said no, and since it was democracy, we had to move. Even some of our development partners were saying, no, open up. But we had learned our history. We knew that political parties also have challenges. It's a process. And we must now give ourselves time to mature and grow, like other democracies have done. And then we have people aligned to ideologies, people belong to parties when they have studied the doctrines, the ideologies, and they have understood it. But as of now, we will have the issue that will be brought to the people. And we are moving to harmonize really, because we have the local government structure right from LC3 to LC1, and then Parliament. It has now been placed at 7 years. Of course, we have other people who have gone to court, and we don't want to go deeper into that because it will be prejudice, because the matter now is before court. But we know that the lawyers will sort that out. But the idea now here is we cannot have separate elections where you have parliament, you have the districts, you have LC3s running for 7 years, and then you have the presidency running for 5 years. So this is what we want to take to the people.
Okay. Robert, this matter is being taken to the people. Some opposition folks thought that actually, initially, the whole matter of age limit and so on should be taken to the people through a referendum. Were you one of those that thought that way?
Let me just put the record very, very straight. I've been very consistent. If you look at my writings in the past few months, I've been very clear that if Uganda should get out of the political gridlock that right now we are ensnared in, we need to think differently. We need to approach the political questions of the day differently, because the path of elections have not delivered what we want. Joel, let's face it. Tomorrow, if I contested and went to Parliament of Uganda, I would be earning myself good money. I would be driving a big car. I would be having a big house.
He was a candidate in the last election.
But that is true. So but at the end of the day,
say that's what was attractive.
Absolutely, I was a candidate. You're not going to, but that will not change the lot of Ugandans. Ugandans are suffering. Ugandans are hurting, in spite of all these institutions being there, by the way, including
the
Parliament.
Question, why then did you run? If you think, you becoming an MP would not contribute to the change, to betterment of these things.
By the way,
and for the second year in a row.
Let's be clear. I'm not even opposed to elections. I'm not. Let's be clear. I am not opposed to elections, but we should have elections under that gives opportunity to all who are participating equal chance to emerge winners or lose fairly. This is what we are saying. And so if I went into those elections, if you want to personalize this should not be personalized. But if you want to personalize it, I go for an election to advance the idea that we need to have level ground for political participation. And even if we chose to go for elections, I would still say let's go, but use that opportunity only to advance the case for leveling the political ground, not with the view that we are going to participate and change the political landscape of the country. Far from it.
So how about then, when you say that you're against the referendum, others will reason like you are reasoning and say that, look, we are opposed to this, but let's participate with the view that we can contribute to the betterment of the electoral system, because that's what you're submitting by saying that you run not away from the win, that you want to contribute to the betterment of the whole electoral reform setting and so on. I don't know how that would happen as a candidate. So they will tell you the same thing. So then why would you be opposed to them, participating in the referendum?
But I think, Joel, really, if for us to be honest here, when you look at the electoral map, when you look at also the outcomes of elections in this country, the current parliament, nearly 83% are new. And they are big shots, big names. And if you want to talk about accomplishments, money, who were flawed in these elections, both in the government side and in the opposition side. And Uganda is having one of the youngest parliaments. Most young people, I want to believe, myself, himself here, really yourself, we don't have much to our names, other than the ideas that we were able to sell to the electorates. So very many of these young people, some straight from school, were entrusted against very established people with huge businesses. They used money, they could have used what? So we must give credit. What is very clear is that through most of these elections, or all these elections, NRM has had a very formidable candidate at the presidency level. And there are people who now, and rightly so, they know people love the president. There are also other people who are voting for other candidates, but President Museveni enjoys a lot of support.
Should we not quiz how that support comes about? Because the Supreme Court has talked about power of the incumbency. You know, there's been the question of using my money.
Why did these MPs,
your money, his money, why did these ministers, the viewers, taxpayers' money to campaign for himself?
Why did the ministers, why did the MPs who are incumbents lose? Actually, people, the fallacy, tomorrow if you came to parliament, you were going to realize this. The fallacy that there's power of incumbency in very limited areas, okay? But actually, incumbency comes with a lot of baggage. All sorts of blame, any mistakes that are made, you may not even be aware. Everyone slammed up and said, this is
what you're saying is that it's okay for the president to use state resources for him to deploy the military for all this intimidation to happen. After all, this baggage of the incumbent is being around. If he has not delivered, people will not vote for him. But money is used on ground, taxpayers' money.
Let me give you an example.
Is deployed, people are beaten, intimidated, and so on.
Joel, let me give an example. You remember the Obama's campaign with Romney? Mm-hmm. Towards the end of that election, there was that natural disaster that struck the U.S. The president had to take charge as the commander-in-chief.
But that's a disaster.
I'm giving an example because it actually turned around the opinion polls and all of that. When people saw him, he's comforting the families, he's bringing in staff from government, he's flying in Air Force One. You can't take that away. Otherwise, then I don't know how you want to run the country. So it doesn't take away the roles, the responsibilities that you have.
And we agree on that, but you see the difference, Honorable, there is that you see, he's still president. When there's a disaster, he should come in. Our president here, unfortunately, remembers to fulfill promises during election time. Promises he made at the previous election. When it's now election time, that's when he delivers things. And when people say you're bribing, he says, I'm fulfilling promises. Why conveniently at this time when you're canvassing for votes? That's when you remember, I promised this church this amount of money, I promised this circle money, now I'm bringing the money during election time. The Supreme Court talked about that. That is also,
you're being selective.
No, that's what the Supreme Court said.
Because even now as we speak, the president is fulfilling pledges. I was in Koboko, I was in Navy. This Saturday is going to be in Dokolo. So the other weekend he was. So it is not true to say the president waits for an electioneering period and that's when now he's fulfilling pledges. No, he has to continue to operate. I ran again as an incumbent. He was having a lot of clout and continuing to fulfill the pledges he had made in the past. And that was all right. So I think the defeatists understand where people complain anyway, elections all over. That's why up to now, Clinton they are still investigating Trump, Russia, and all of this. So you are bound to feel this. But let us give credit where it is due. We are in a democracy. The only way we can determine the path to follow is by subjecting ourselves.
All right, let me bring Robert back in.
Through an election.
Ultimately, a decision has got to be taken. If it's in the case of the president, Parliament cannot amend that bit. It has got to be taken to the people. How do we do this? Because previously, 85% of Ugandans, according to a survey that was carried out by some civil society organizations, they said, let's not remove the age limit. And many of them were tethering it to the idea that President Museveni should retire. So would this not be a good time to say, let's take it to the people, but how?
For me, Joel, you see, there's a context to this, and every country has its own history, and we need to look at our own history and say, this is what has been happening in our country, and this is where we are as a country. If we want to move forward in a more inclusive, more democratic fashion, what do we need to do? As a people, we will find answers to that question. My own opinion, and I've said this many times, is that the only workable approach that Uganda should explore is the dialogue approach that you want. And the dialogue should not be left to us politicians, by the way. Because if you leave it to us politicians, it's not going to deliver. The people of Uganda have to demand. And this has to be before in elections can be conducted. And so if you are talking specific to the referendum, let's begin. Let's tell the politicians that we cannot go for a referendum because first of all, by the way, Joel.
No,
by the way, Joel. Let's be clear.
What dialogue are you talking
about?
The
people of Uganda spoke before Parliament removed the age limit. The people, it was clear. The people of Uganda spoke about these issues. So in fact, it's a no-brainer to want to say we want to take this thing back to the people.
What should the dialogue be about? What are the issues you would like on the table if the dialogue, and when it is to happen?
We need to have a level playing ground for politicians across the aisle. It shouldn't be one side. The question of elections in this country must be settled. I mean, if you look at jurisdictions such as Kenya, if you look at when Daniel Arap Moi was leaving the political stage, they sat down and said, how do we move forward? And they agreed on a new electoral management system, which was able to deliver Kenya to a democracy. And one of the things that they did in that to enable political parties to participate fairly was to give what they call seed money to all political parties to participate and have laws that, play equally to all political parties. This needs to be done. So if you ask me what dialogue, what should the dialogue focus, the issues that the dialogue should focus, those are the issues. Then we need to discuss what political system do we want to adapt. Do we think the multi-party system is doing well? If it is not, how do we improve it to work well? The question of resources, the question of development, these are things that we need to talk about in an inclusive fashion. Joel, this country is divided like it has never been. The south and the north is so much divided. Joel, our hospitals are empty. Joel, if you go to schools, northern Uganda, eastern Uganda, you see how children are not getting education. These are issues that we must focus. The NRM is proud of, doing roads. But let's face it, who is using these roads? You don't construct roads for people to see. People must be able to use these roads. And these are things that we need to talk about. So where we are as a polity, we need to have an honest discussion about where the country should go. Otherwise, you will always allow the Paul Amoros to enjoy themselves in Parliament. A few clique of people enjoying the political class, enjoying themselves at the expense of millions of Ugandans. And we don't want to go this way.
Is it a bad thing? Is it such a bad thing to talk? Because these are Ugandans too. They might have different political opinions from yours, but they're stakeholders and everybody else that might not even be political. So is it such a bad thing to say, let's get on a table and let's talk. Let's talk about this, our country.
But I think already we, even now as we speak, there's a forum that allows for political players.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
Which has developed thorns and so on.
Yeah, it's just because, I mean, he's talking, let us be practical here. The last election, the opposition tried to come together to talk amongst themselves. You saw what happened. He's giving reference to Kenya. All through the decades, the constant figure in demanding this reform, crying foul, saying he would be president if this is reformed. He is now saying it is reformed. This is Raila Odinga. But you know, up to date, what Raila Odinga is doing in that country. And that he has not, with all those issues addressed, as my brother Robert agrees, Raila is still not president of Kenya. And so, you know, sometimes we might have weaknesses that we want to use scapegoats and explanations left and right. But I really think in this country, if you prepared yourself as a candidate, there are other factors, definitely. Well, you mobilized, Ugandans are able to see between the lines and know that so and so is able to offer leadership. And he was making reference here to issues of age limit and all of that. For some of us, really, what we see, and you have seen it in other jurisdictions, including Israel and whatnot, the issue is we have leadership also is a resource. Just like in the media here, you personalities like you, this is a resource we have in the media industry. Now the idea is we don't want to discard. We don't want to create environments that deliberately discard others. Let these leadership resources remain on the table.
So that
means
like a
menu. It is like a menu. Hold on, let me finish. No. Look here.
Because you want to keep the resource.
It's not a laughing matter. So that the electorates that we are talking about, the people. My only quarrel would be if we came to a day where we are saying we do not want the people of Uganda to go to the ballot and choose their leaders.
We want them to go to the ballot, but we want their vote to count.
It counts.
It's important that at the end of the day, the election is credible and so on. But Robert, how do you get these folks on a discussion table? Because they'll tell you, dialogue for what? We won the election, we were declared winners, somebody went to court, court said, yes, there were issues, but declared us winners, upheld the election as it were. How then do you get them to talk? What's the pull factor?
You see, Joel, we need to be very, very serious. First of all, as political opposition in this country, we need to be serious. We need to
you are not serious.
Be realistic. Right? I will concede to some extent we have not treated this matter as seriously as it should be. And I'm going to be very, very frank. Look, go back to the elections, 2016. By the time that we were going for the polling, the NRM already had, I think, over 10 MPs unopposed, and several other,
close to 20 LC5 unopposed,
and look at the scandalous 3 million shillings, that the Parliament at that time, issued as a nomination fee. And we accepted as political opposition to say, this is okay, we are going to participate. For me, that doesn't add up. I don't think that is the direction
that was proposed by people in opposition.
We have to...
I don't think you are following.
We have to have
Let's correct that. Let's correct that. Without mentioning names, but we could, but you know them. The proposal, that time I was also a candidate, the proposal to lift the money, the nomination fee to 3 million was not something that came from government.
That's a scandal.
Actually, the leading fellow, it was from
I don't know. I don't have the facts.
No, but he was pushing it to us.
I don't have the facts.
You are pushing it to government.
I don't know.
Yeah, so if you don't have the facts, you don't speak about it.
Well, you have to give. It remains
a
rumor as long as you cannot put it on table.
And use the evidence.
Yes,
who was the biggest proponent?
Yes,
you know the supporters. I don't want to mention names.
No, I don't. So you inform us.
Then it is a rumor.
So inform us and the viewers.
Then it is a rumor.
I don't want to mention names.
But the law we say you cannot adduce evidence.
Actually, you play it here. You go back to that debate.
What should we look for?
But Joel, let me score the point. So the point here is, we need, as political opposition, to say what works for us. We need to have that honest conversation. What does not work? It is, and you see, this is why NRM keeps harping on this point. If you work hard, if you mobilize, if you do this, we don't want to work against odds. We want an even ground. It is abnormal.
My question
We
was,
don't want.
what's going to be the pull factor? Because they'll tell you we won the election, etc., etc. These guys say they are a mass party and all of that. So what's the pull factor that's going to get them to talk?
The people of Uganda have the sovereign authority over who rules them.
So have you
The
galvanized
people of Uganda,
the people of
our
Uganda
job,
to demand for that?
absolutely, this is what we are trying to do. And when I appear on your TV show like this is what I'm telling the people of Uganda. And I'm saying we need to demand from the political class a new dispensation that is premised on the idea that every political actor in this country matters. And so without that, we cannot allow you proceed with your scandals in the country. This conversation must happen. It should not be left to politicians. People of Uganda should. But we should give credit. There's already effort to that effect. The Interreligious Council of Uganda, the Elders Forum, there's already effort to that. We need to build on that effort and say we cannot go for elections before A, B, C, D is dealt with. These are Ugandans, the Interreligious Council. They are Ugandans. They're not in the mainstream politics, but they're concerned about the political questions of the day. And so we should explore, build on that effort.
I think you're Joel, to be honest, I think you should be, like I am, you should be struggling to pick what Robert is talking about. I don't know whether it is well conceived, this idea he's talking about.
What are you not understanding?
So abstract. You know,
what is making, point out the abstractness. What is making it abstract?
It's so abstract.
Yes, point out.
It begins to talk about political dispensation that values every actor. He's talking about.
So this is abstract.
Because now, when you say we should have a national dialogue around that, like for instance, I think we are having that. We are having that here. We have so many talk shows.
Paul, please. Now, you know more than this.
Now,
please.
No, Robert.
Please.
You see, usually when we talk about maybe systems, for example, some people say maybe a parliamentary democracy is better. You know, when you go to South Africa, people don't have to elect the president necessarily. They go to UK, the party with the most members of parliament just continue to pick their leader. Others are talking about a much more developed system, like if he's referring to, because there must be some concepts. You just cannot pick, pieces and you are going to have a national dialogue for 10 years.
Paul, we are discussing principles. Let me be clear with you. We are discussing principles.
You're not.
We are not discussing the details of the outlook of the dialogue. If we get there, then we will agree on the items. We will say, so how can we have an inclusive political system? Then we say maybe parliamentary system.
So what should be the in this dialogue? If you can shed some more light, Robert. Who should be involved in this dialogue? Who should superintend over it? Who should be the arbiter, and so on?
I told you the dialogue needs to be as inclusive as possible. Take care of all political shades of opinion in the country. But
about
also,
those that don't belong to
absolutely, I was coming there. We need to also take care of the other interests.
Can I ask that? Let me ask you a question. Now that we are right in the middle of a tenure.
Yes.
And he's talking of, and this is the question you kept asking, that what is the motivation or what is going to be the trigger for a discussion at this stage?
Yes.
Regarding probably a number of issues that is raising.
Yes.
Is it suggesting we need a unity government? What is the essence of the specifics of the discussion he's talking about? Because if he talks about inclusiveness, we went into 2005 as a country to open up the space. so that Ugandans are free to belong and to participate, even as independents. The Constitution provides space for that. We provided space for young people. That's why they're in the parliament. We provided space for women, and that record is celebrated across the globe. So, at this stage, we are done with elections. What we are focusing on, like he's talking about service delivery, he was referring to hospitals and whatnot. Recently, there was a lot of outcry about the nodding disease syndrome in the north. And then the ministry released details of funds that nobody was talking about.
But the ministry actually said it's epilepsy and not nodding syndrome.
That had been, but
we
the way they describe it, because we are really not experts in what, but it could be that it presents itself in forms that could also fall within that situation, that condition. So you find that we definitely need accountability. Anybody, any serious leader, any serious politician, it doesn't matter which political party you belong to, whether you are not a politician, we need accountability at all levels.
Talking of accountability,
Yeah.
Robert, how about we say, because if these guys are in power, there was a contestation about whether or not they won the election, that was settled, or was
Legally
at
settled?
least in court it was. And we say, how do we keep these guys in check?
And we have continued to win elections,
And
by elections.
By we, I mean as a people, all different stakeholders. You know that as citizens, we say, how do we keep holding our leaders accountable? They're going to be here for the next 5 years. Now they want to push it to 7 years. How do we make sure they're using our money right? They're using their mandate right?
That one is very serious.
Opposition political parties, are you providing alternatives? How do we make sure that these guys don't do whatever they want, willy-nilly? That at the end of the day, it is about country and every stakeholder is involved.
Joel, the political landscape of Uganda does not allow for people of Uganda to check their leaders. That is actually fallacious.
I think let's correct this.
We need to be realistic.
Can I give you
and we need
information?
to be serious.
Can I give you
Let's
information?
How many times has this parliament enacted obnoxious legislation and nothing happened? The last one is what they just did. You saw the whole country from Koboko to Kabale. The whole country was saying no.
So why hasn't that not been sustained, for example? Everybody seemed to have gotten back to business as usual. One would have expected that there should have been an uproar, that you guys have gone against our will and you have done otherwise, which, you know, you could hear quite much of it. But we seem to have settled in, because if they went against what we wanted them to do, we have settled and moved on. And you know what that means? Next time, they'll do whatever it is that they want. There'll be a bit of noise, but they know at these ones, they calm down and move on easily.
This is why.
So there's no continuous accountability.
This is why we are saying, and political political leaders, we need to have quickly discussion around the issues. You've been asking me what is is going to be the pull factor. Joel, there's nothing that is beyond a polity. It's not there. It's not there. The moment the people say this is what we want, there is no politician who will be above that. The question of whether we are in the middle of the term or what does not arise.
The people he's talking
about.
The
question is, how do we mobilize the people of Uganda to say no to the scandals of the NRM?
And perhaps that's a good place to start. As
and
the
I'm saying,
opposition, who are having a key interest in this, at least you are part of the leadership, so to speak. How are you getting yourselves organized? Because earlier on you said, you know, there's disintegration within the opposition. So perhaps you say, let's begin with the dialogue at that level. Let's meet you guys get to meet as opposition figures and political parties and say, can we have a joint front that we can put out there? Because right about now, everybody's saying different things.
Exactly.
How then do you expect to coalesce, if you like, the whole citizenry to that cause, which you people are not united about?
The thing is that in the past, yes, I want to concede, we've been fairly uncoordinated. That has been there. And you don't blame it also on us. Because as you know, President Museveni is, uses this money to scuttle every effort that the opposition initiates.
Yeah, but people should be strong enough to say no to the money.
Now, I'm not going to, but Joel, give me time to
No, but
to
you
say this.
already had like
Now,
4 minutes.
The thing is, in spite of the weaknesses that we've had in the past, we should be able to forge a new, better cooperation that should then give the people of Uganda confidence that the political opposition in this country, this time around, is doing things differently and is more focused. And for me, this referendum gives us that opportunity to say, guys, can we say no to participating in the referendum? If we go back, of course, that's my position. But if the political opposition, after a robust discussion, thinks that maybe it is good to participate, so be it. But when we've given the country hope, confidence that we want to do things together.
Okay, Honorable Moro, I still talking about this referendum and the reason for it. You folks decided, let's push our term, your term, from 5 years to 7 years. And one of the reasonings was that
for local governments.
At the start of your term, for about 2 or 3 years, you're just trying to learn the ropes and trying to get a grip of your role, which I found totally ridiculous. Because if you're going to, for 3 years, to be learning how to do your job, in the meantime I'm paying you, I find that preposterous. It just does not make sense. You see, for many a job, it's actually a 3-year contract. So you have about 3 months or so to learn the ropes.
That was the main argument.
That was one of those, especially that was being fronted by those who are pushing for this. That you see, we waste a lot of time.
I met you here several times.
For
Did
the
you
4
hear
years,
advance that?
for the most of the people that I spoke to,
can I give you
we're advancing that, saying a lot of time is wasted, so 3 years is not much happening. The other 4, then what can happen? And I'm thinking, no, work should actually start on day 1.
You see, first of all, what we should admit as a country is too much politicking. Too much talking and too much politicking. I can tell you, across from LC3, candidates are already what? Moving around, campaigning. In other countries, that would even be illegal. Because you have designated electioneering period. Because campaigns polarize people, pit people against each other. Many people say certain things to win the day. And the moment you have no control over that, we do not have a time when we come back together as a country and focus on development at all levels, then I can tell you we're going to waste a lot of time politicking and talking, empty stuff. So I think the issue is that the practice that you've seen in Uganda, after immediately, and it's happening also, I think, in other jurisdictions already, and this is likely going to follow, because we want to work with what is practical. What works is you don't think abstract.
So what's the practicality about the 7 years? Give us your justification.
So you see, usually elections do not necessarily end on the polling date. There are going to be petitions at all levels. There are going to be the aftershocks of that election. Usually the economy is affected, and it's not only Uganda, whether it is US, whether it is what. When you come out of elections, the confidence levels of investors are down. They do not know who is coming in. Stability, because the market speculates. So all of that take time to settle. And this is a fact. It's a proven fact.
With all respect.
No, let me finish.
All right.
So most cases, depending on the issues, really, it is true that before real governance issues are focused on, people are diverted. I'm a member of parliament who has petitions for running for a year. You don't know how much time or focus you'll have. And LC5, who is in charge, is actually the president of a district, but is in court over these elections. and then
So what happens if the court case drags on for much longer? Of course,
it should not.
For people like Numbers, it went on for 4 years.
But that has been cured
6
also.
months and so
that
on.
has been cured.
So then
that they were very
the
many.
excuse of 7 years.
But that has been cured.
Water.
That has been cured. So you find that usually about a year or so is lost within those things, and you can deny it.
You see, Honorable, when we put you in office, we want you to begin work on day one. So when you give me the excuse that Robert Mugabe is, is campaigning
will he take himself to court?
and so
on? No, I've given you more practical examples.
I want you to be doing your work. Actually, that's a good campaign tool. Just deliver.
Yeah.
Yes, Robert.
You see what Paul is saying essentially is an indictment on the system. He's been denying it. We are saying the electoral system as it is does not deliver the sort of elections that we want, and this is what he's saying. And so we are saying you don't actually need to extend your term of office as long as you can work out and deliver a neat election. But then you don't need any extension.
This is so abstract. Why do we behave? Why do we speak? But I think you're right too much time.
Even if we give you another 30 years.
You need to give me...
Even if we give you another 30 years.
And we need to wrap this up.
My brother Paul, even if we give you another 30 years. You've been here 33 years.
Giving us.
You've been here 33 years. You've not delivered democracy to this country.
Like he has the votes in his pocket, he just gives to NRM. NRM, you should know. You're not surrendered.
We all know this. We know this.
No. I think that is not.
I'm afraid I've got to end this. My time is up. But this is the discussion that continues. As the referendum draws nearer, we'll keep having these engagements so that we can see sense in this. But more importantly, if it is to happen, that it gets to be credible. I think that's important.
It will be credible. Let Robert go
not
to the
under the
ground.
Circumstances.
Robert has run twice. He has not boycotted any of those elections.
I told you the
now
reason.
We are in the middle.
I told you
He's
the reason.
saying he doesn't need elections. But I can tell you, you could note this. When the Electoral Commission calls for the next election, you're going to find Robert a candidate.
I told you the reason.
I'm afraid we've got to wrap this up. Gentlemen, you will allow that I'll call you again.
Yeah, I think so.
And then we can advance these points a lot more. But thank you for making the time.
It's a pleasure.
That's it for the big story. Morning at NTV continues shortly.